speak now to Victor Gao, Vice President of the Beijing-based think tank Centre for China and Globalisation. Victor, good to see you again. These are high-stakes talks taking place in London today. Because of the issue that Steve has just outlined around rare earth metals, would you say that China feels it has the upper hand?
First of all, China does not want to fight any trade war or tariff war with the United States. China's best hope is that rationality will come back to Washington and trade can be resumed in the normal course of business. And free trade can be protected, not only for China, but for the rest of the world. Now, when you talk about the rare earth, the Chinese government has declared that the rare earth is dual use for civilian use as well as military use. My personal reading is that China will be firmly opposed to the United States using rare earth to produce weapons which may be used by the United States against China. So this is something taboo. Now, for civilian use in automobile making, for example, that's another matter, and China has already been lessening the control about the rare earth export to the United States. I hope this will be prevailing, rare earth to be used for civilian purposes rather than for military purposes.
But Victor, President Trump has suggested this issue around the rare earth metals has been straightened out, and yet there doesn't appear to be much clarity. Do you think it actually has been? Like, will the flow of the rare earth metals start again to the US? How fast will it happen? What about the volume of material that is going to be released to the US?
As I mentioned, China has clearly defined civilian use versus military use for the rare earth to be supplied to the United States. I don't think China views it as much of a problem for civilian use, but for military use, especially for weapons to be produced with such rare earth materials, which the United States may eventually use to attack China. I don't think anyone in China wants to supply the United States with such rare earth for military use. So I think there will be a distinction between civilian use versus military use. And also, please keep in mind that China's increased restriction on rare earth export to the United States is in itself a reaction to the so-called chips war launched by the United States, trying to deny China's access to the more sophisticated chips and many other things. So I think it's no longer a tariff issue at all. It is much more important relating to other things. And I hope the United States will really have the rationality, not looking at China as an enemy or an adversary, but looking at China on an equal term. We can do business without harming each other. But if you want to really manhandle China, then China will have the wherewithal to get back at you.
Apparently the call between the two presidents went very well the other day. The US President, Donald Trump, describing it as a very good talk. How is it being portrayed in China at the moment, the relationship between not just President Xi and President Trump, but just between the two countries?
Well, the call was very important. It was requested again and again and again by the American side, and the Chinese president decided to take the call, and the whole world in the market, for example, calmed down significantly. So it's a positive step in the right direction. However, we need to also understand that while I have the utmost respect for President Trump as the US president, commander-in-chief, etc., the fact that his government has become very frivolous and arbitrary and capricious and highly unpredictable is really making doing business with the United States almost impossible. And I hope the United States government will really realize that to be feared is not the right way to make America great again. You need to really make yourself to be respected. And one way to respect the United States is for the United States to become highly reliable rather than the other side. So I think between China and the United States, while I have all the hope that the trade talk will end up with a positive result eventually, but I still hope Washington will become highly predictable, reliable, and not that capricious, arbitrary, and frivolous.
Victor, good to see you. Thank